Priscilla Presley sat in dimmed light, decades after Elvis died, answering questions she had answered 1,000 times before. The interviewer asked about their final year together, asked about their last real conversation. Simple question, safe question. Priscilla's face changed. She went silent, not the polite pause of someone gathering thoughts, the silence of someone deciding whether to finally open a door she had kept locked for over 40 years. Then she whispered one word, and everyone in the room understood instantly why she had never spoken about this moment publicly. People think they know why Elvis and Priscilla split. They point to the fame, the other women, the impossible schedule, the pills, the pressure. They are wrong. The real fracture happened on a quiet night when Priscilla said something so simple, so true, that it shattered the man she loved. She did not yell it, did not scream it, she whispered it. And Elvis froze mid-sentence like she had just named the thing he had spent his entire life running from. The word was not cruel. It was not angry. It was not even a surprise. It was the one thing Elvis had spent his entire life pretending he was not. This is not about scandal. This is not about blame. This is about the moment Priscilla understood that the man she loved was disappearing into someone she could not reach, and the word she spoke that proved it. That word has haunted her ever since, because when she said it, Elvis did not argue, did not deflect, did not laugh it away. He just looked at her with eyes that confirmed everything she feared. And neither of them were ever the same. The night it happened, Elvis was not the king. He was just a man who had forgotten how to be himself, and Priscilla was the only one left who still saw him. But seeing him was not enough. Not anymore. Because the word she whispered that night was not just an observation. It was the truth he could not survive hearing. Early 1970s, Graceland. Elvis Presley at the height of his fame, but something essential inside him had already started breaking. Priscilla watched it happen in real time. She would stand in the doorway some nights, watching Elvis hold court with his entourage, laughing, telling stories, performing even at home, even with people who had seen him 1,000 times. The room always came alive when he walked in, always. But when everyone left, when the laughter faded and the house went quiet, Elvis would go silent too. He would not look at her, would not speak. He would just sit there, staring at nothing, like the man who had been laughing 5 minutes earlier had never existed at all. Priscilla had become a witness to his loneliness rather than a cure for it. That realization did not come all at once. It built slowly, night after night, moment after moment. She started noticing the way Elvis performed even when they were alone, the way he would slip into Elvis mode mid-conversation, charming and untouchable even when no one was watching but her. She married Elvis Presley, but the man she fell in love with was disappearing. People on the outside saw the fame, saw the gold records and the sold-out shows and the screaming fans. They saw a man who had everything. Priscilla saw something else. She saw a man who told the world he was fine while packing the halls of Graceland at 3 in the morning because he could not sleep, could not rest, could not stop being Elvis Presley long enough to remember who he was before the world needed him. He told her he loved her, told her everything was okay, but his hands shook when he thought no one was looking. And Priscilla was always looking. One night she found him sitting in the dark. No lights, no music, just Elvis alone holding his Bible in his lap, not reading it, not praying, just holding it like it was supposed to fix something it could not. She stepped into the room quietly. "You okay?" He looked up, smiled, that same smile he gave everyone. "Yeah, baby, I am fine." But his hands were trembling. She sat down beside him, close enough to feel the tension radiating off him like heat, close enough to see that the Bible in his hands was not a source of comfort. It was a weight, another thing he was supposed to carry, another expectation he was failing to meet. "Elvis," she said softly, "you do not have to pretend with me." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and for just a second she saw the exhaustion he had been hiding, the fear, the doubt. Then he blinked, and it was gone. "I am not pretending," he said. "I am good." But he was not good. Priscilla knew it, Elvis knew it, and the space between them filled with all the words neither of them knew how to say. That was the beginning. The moment Priscilla realized that loving Elvis meant watching him disappear, and there was nothing she could do about it unless he admitted he was breaking. But Elvis Presley did not break. At least, not in front of anyone. He carried his weight alone because he thought that was what strength looked like, thought that admitting exhaustion meant admitting weakness, thought that if he ever stopped holding the world together, everything would collapse. So he kept going, kept performing, kept smiling, kept telling everyone, including Priscilla, that he was fine. And Priscilla kept watching the man she loved vanish a little more each day. She did not know it yet, but the word she would eventually whisper to him, the one that would freeze him in place, was already forming in the silence between them. The distance grew slowly. Not in anger, not in betrayal, in something quieter, something harder to fight. Priscilla would reach for him, and he would be there physically but gone in every other way. She would ask him questions, and he would answer, but the answers felt rehearsed, polished, like he was giving an interview instead of talking to his wife. She started to understand something that terrified her. Elvis was not choosing fame over her. He was not choosing the pills or the schedule or the entourage. He was choosing the version of himself the world demanded because he had forgotten there was any other version left. And Priscilla was losing him not to another woman, not to Hollywood, not to anything she could fight. She was losing him to the man he thought he had to be. Late nights became unbearable. She would lie awake beside him, listening to him breathe, wondering if he was asleep or just pretending, wondering if he ever let his guard down anymore, even in his own bed. One night she whispered into the dark, "Do you ever just want to stop?" Elvis did not answer right away. Then quietly, almost too quiet to hear, "I do not know how." That sentence broke something inside her. Because it was not a refusal, it was not denial, it was the truth. Elvis Presley did not know how to stop being Elvis Presley. Did not know how to rest without guilt. Did not know how to be human without feeling like he was failing everyone who needed him to be more. Priscilla reached for his hand in the dark. He let her hold it, but even his touch felt distant, like he was letting her hold the hand of someone who was not really there anymore. She wanted to scream, wanted to shake him, wanted to tell him that she did not need Elvis Presley, she needed him, the man, the person underneath all the noise. But she stayed quiet, because she knew that saying it out loud would not change anything. Not yet. Not until he was ready to hear it. But the silence was suffocating. And every day, Priscilla felt the weight of watching someone she loved drown, while refusing the hand she kept reaching out. She did not know it yet, but she was preparing herself. Preparing for the night she would finally stop protecting him from the truth. The night she would say the word. The word that was not cruel or angry or even unexpected. Just honest. And honesty, she would learn, was the one thing Elvis could not survive. She did not know how much longer she could watch him disappear, did not know how much longer she could pretend she did not see the cracks spreading. But she knew one thing. The word was coming. And when she finally whispered it, everything between them would change. Because the night she said it, Elvis was not ready. But Priscilla could not protect him anymore. There was a night when Priscilla tried one more time. One more attempt to reach the man hiding behind the legend. She waited until the house was quiet, until the entourage had gone home, until it was just the two of them, the way it used to be before the world got so loud. Elvis was sitting in the living room, staring at nothing in particular, exhausted but wired, too tired to sleep, too restless to rest. Priscilla sat down beside him. "Talk to me," she said softly. Elvis looked over at her, smiled that familiar smile. "About what, baby?" "Anything, just talk to me, really talk to me." He nodded, started to say something, something real, something honest, something that sounded like the man she married. Then mid-sentence, she watched it happen. The shift. The exact moment Elvis Presley slipped back into the mask. His voice changed, became smoother, more charming. The stories became performances instead of confessions. The vulnerability disappeared behind the grin. She was not talking to her husband anymore. She was talking to the version of him the world demanded. And it broke her heart all over again. Because he was trying, she could see that. He wanted to give her what she needed, wanted to be present, to be real, to be enough. But somewhere along the way, he had forgotten how. The real man, the one who used to sit with her for hours talking about dreams and fears and everything in between, that man was gone, replaced by someone who could not turn off the performance even when the lights went down. Priscilla felt something harden inside her chest. This was not betrayal. Betrayal would have been easier. This was watching someone she loved choose the cage because they had forgotten they even had a key. She interrupted him gently. "Elvis." He stopped mid-story, looked at her with those eyes that used to see her completely. "Do you even know who you are when no one is watching?" The question hung in the air between them like smoke. Elvis went silent, completely silent. His face did not change, did not harden or soften, just froze in that strange in-between place where people go when they have been asked something they cannot answer. He looked at her like she had just said something dangerous. Something true. Something he had been running from for so long he did not know how to stop. Then so quietly she almost missed it, he whispered, "I used to." 3 words. That was all. But those 3 words confirmed everything Priscilla had been terrified of. Elvis did not know who he was anymore. Not really. Not without the fame, the music, the applause, the constant validation that he mattered, that he was enough, that he had value beyond what he could give. Priscilla felt her throat tighten. She was not losing Elvis to another woman, not to Hollywood, not to the pills or the pressure or the impossible schedule. She was losing him to the fear of finding out who he was without all of it. And that terrified him more than anything else ever could. The silence between them grew heavier. Elvis looked away first, rubbed his face with both hands like he could wipe away the exhaustion, the doubt, the unbearable weight of being Elvis Presley every second of every day. "I have a show next week," he said, voice flat, "then 2 more after that, then Vegas, then." "Elvis." He stopped. She reached for his hand, held it tight. "You cannot keep doing this." "Doing what?" "Running." His jaw tightened. "I am not running from anything." But they both knew that was a lie. The schedule intensified after that night. More shows, more travel, more pills to stay awake, more pills to come down, more pills to numb the ache that never quite went away. More people depending on him. More expectations piling up like bricks on his chest. Priscilla watched it all happen and felt powerless to stop it. Because the truth was, Elvis needed the chaos, needed the noise, needed the constant motion, because standing still meant facing himself, and facing himself meant confronting the emptiness that had been growing inside him for years. The world saw a king. Priscilla saw a man barely holding on. She tried to talk to him again a few nights later. Found him in the same spot, staring at the same wall, carrying the same unbearable weight. "You are going to break," she said quietly. Elvis looked at her. "I have been breaking for years, Priscilla. Nobody noticed because I kept singing." The rawness in his voice nearly undid her. I notice, she whispered. I know you do, he swallowed hard. That is what makes it worse. She did not understand at first, then she did. He did not want her to see him like this, did not want anyone to see the cracks spreading, did not want to admit that the man everyone depended on was collapsing under the weight of his own mythology. Strength to Elvis meant suffering alone. Asking for help meant admitting he was not enough. And admitting he was not enough meant everything he had built, every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every piece of himself he had given away, meant nothing. So he kept going, kept performing, kept pretending, even when it was killing him. Priscilla understood something then that she had been avoiding for months. She had a choice to make. She could keep protecting him, keep watching him disappear, keep pretending she did not see the man she loved drowning right in front of her. Or she could tell him the truth. The truth he was not ready to hear. The truth that would either save him or destroy what was left of them. She was terrified of both outcomes. But she was more terrified of doing nothing. Because doing nothing meant watching Elvis die slowly, watching him vanish into the legend until there was nothing left of the man she married. And she loved him too much to let that happen without a fight. So she started preparing herself. Not consciously, not with a plan. But somewhere deep inside, she knew the moment was coming. The moment she would stop biting her tongue, stop protecting him from the truth, stop letting him pretend he was fine when he was barely surviving. The word was already forming. The word she would whisper that would freeze him in place. The word that would crack open everything he had been hiding. She did not know exactly when she would say it, did not know what would finally push her past the point of silence. But she knew it was coming. Because she could not keep watching the man she loved disappear. Could not keep pretending that love alone was enough to save someone who refused to be saved. Late one night, she found him again in the dark. Same posture, same stillness, same haunted look in his eyes. She sat down beside him without saying anything. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Elvis, voice barely above a whisper, said something that nearly broke her. I do not know how to be what everyone needs and still be myself. Priscilla closed her eyes. Because that was the heart of it. The impossible choice Elvis had been living with for years. Be the man the world demanded, or be the man he actually was. He could not do both. And he was too tired to keep trying. You do not have to be everything to everyone, she said gently. Elvis shook his head. Yes, I do. That is the deal I made. That is what they expect. What about what you need? He looked at her then, really looked at her. And she saw it again. That flicker of the man she married, the man who used to dream, the man who used to laugh without performing, the man who used to believe he was enough just as he was. But the flicker faded fast, replaced by exhaustion, by resignation, by the unbearable weight of being someone he could never stop being. What I need does not matter, he said quietly. And Priscilla understood. The man she loved had convinced himself that his own humanity was selfish. That rest was weakness. That admitting exhaustion meant letting everyone down. He had built a prison out of his own success. And he had locked himself inside. The night she finally said it, Elvis was not ready. But Priscilla could not protect him anymore. Because protection had become participation. And she loved him too much to watch him destroy himself in silence. The word was not an accusation. It was not anger. It was not even a criticism. It was the truth. The simple, devastating, undeniable truth. And when she finally whispered it, everything between them shattered. Because Elvis knew she was right. And knowing she was right meant admitting he had been lying to himself for years. Admitting he was exactly what he had spent his entire life pretending not to be. The word was coming, and neither of them would survive it unchanged. The night it happened, Elvis was talking about the next tour. Rambling, really, listing cities and venues and dates like they were lifelines instead of chains. His voice had that manic edge it always got when exhaustion was winning, but he refused to admit it. Priscilla sat across from him, watching, listening, waiting. She had heard this speech before, heard him convince himself that if he just kept moving, kept performing, kept giving, everything would be okay, that the emptiness would fill itself, that the ache would fade. But it never did, and she could not watch it anymore. Elvis paused mid-sentence to catch his breath, started to continue. That was when Priscilla interrupted. Gently, quietly, Elvis. He looked up, eyes heavy, face drawn, the exhaustion he had been hiding for months written in every line, every shadow. She held his gaze, and then she said it. You are tired. 2 words. That was all. Not a question, not an accusation, just a simple observation spoken with all the love and ache she had been carrying for years. You are tired. Elvis froze. Completely froze. His mouth was still half open from whatever he had been about to say. His hands went still. His breathing stopped. For a long moment, he just stared at her like she had reached inside his chest and pulled out the one thing he had been hiding from everyone, including himself. He did not argue, did not deflect, did not laugh it away or change the subject or slip into Elvis mode. He just sat there silent while the truth hung in the air between them like something alive. Because she was right. He was tired. Soul tired. Existence tired. Tired in a way that sleep could not fix, and pills could not numb, and fame could not erase. And hearing it said out loud, hearing it named by the one person who still really saw him, shattered something fundamental inside him. Because Elvis Presley was not supposed to be tired. Elvis Presley was supposed to be unstoppable, unbreakable, always on, always giving, always strong. Being tired meant being weak. Being tired meant being human. Being tired meant admitting that the mythology he had built around himself was a lie. And he could not survive that admission. Priscilla watched his face, watched the exact moment the word landed, watched the defenses crumble and the exhaustion flood in, and the man she loved realize he had been caught. Not by a reporter, not by a fan, not by someone who wanted something from him, by the woman who loved him enough to tell him the truth. And that made it unbearable. Because if Priscilla saw it, that meant it was real. That meant he could not pretend anymore. That meant the mask had finally slipped so far he could not pull it back up. Elvis opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came. What could he say? Denying it would be a lie, and they both knew it. Admitting it would mean everything he had spent his life avoiding. So he said nothing, just sat there frozen, while the silence filled with all the things he could not bring himself to speak. Priscilla felt her heart break. Because she had hoped, desperately, foolishly hoped, that saying it would set him free, that naming the thing would give him permission to rest, to stop, to be human. But instead, she watched him shut down. Watched the vulnerability flash across his face and then vanish, replaced by something harder, something colder. Something that looked like shame. I am fine, he said finally, voice tight, controlled. But his hands were shaking. Elvis, I said I am fine. The words came out sharp, defensive, not angry at her, but at the truth she had forced him to face. Priscilla did not push. She knew that pushing would only make him retreat further, make him build the walls higher, make him disappear into the version of himself that could not be reached. So she stayed quiet. But the word was out now. Tired. It sat between them like a wound neither of them knew how to heal. Because Priscilla had said it with love, with desperation, with the hope that maybe, just maybe, if she named it, he would finally let himself admit it too. But Elvis heard something different. He heard failure, heard weakness, heard proof that he was not enough, that he was letting people down, that the man everyone depended on was crumbling. And that terrified him more than anything else in the world. Because his entire identity was built on strength, on being the one who gave, who provided, who carried the weight so others did not have to. Years later, someone asked Priscilla what she wished she could have told Elvis that night. She thought for a long time before answering. Then she said something that cut straight to the bone. I wish I had told him that being tired was not the same as giving up. Because that was what Elvis believed. That admitting exhaustion meant admitting failure. That rest was something weak people needed. That if he stopped, even for a moment, everything he had built would crumble and everyone who depended on him would fall. He carried that belief like a stone around his neck. And it drowned him. The word tired was not cruel when Priscilla said it. It was not a judgment. It was not even a criticism. It was love trying desperately to reach a man who had forgotten he was allowed to be human. But Elvis heard it differently. He heard it as confirmation of his worst fear. That he was not enough. That the strength everyone depended on was finally breaking. That the man behind the legend was weak, fragile, failing. And he could not survive believing that about himself. So instead of accepting the truth, he rejected it. Rejected the word. Rejected the permission it carried. Rejected the woman who loved him enough to say it. Because accepting it would have meant dismantling everything. The image, the identity, the mythology. Everything he had sacrificed for, everything he had become. And Elvis did not know who he was without all of that. So he chose the lie. Chose to keep performing strength while collapsing inside. Chose to keep running until there was nowhere left to run. And Priscilla watched it happen, powerless to stop it. Because you cannot save someone who refuses to be saved. You cannot heal someone who believes their wounds make them weak. You cannot rest someone who thinks rest is surrender. All you can do is love them and hope that love is enough. But sometimes love is not enough. Sometimes the lies people tell themselves are louder than the truth anyone else can speak. And sometimes the word that could set someone free is the exact word that traps them further. Tired. That word haunted Priscilla for decades. Because she knew, absolutely knew, that if Elvis had just admitted it, just said the words out loud, just allowed himself to be human for one moment, everything could have been different. He could have rested, could have stopped, could have found a way to be Elvis Presley and still hold onto the man he was underneath. But he could not do it, could not cross that line, could not admit that the weight was too heavy even to the woman who loved him most. And that choice, that refusal, cost him everything. His marriage, his peace, his life. Because the truth is, Elvis did not die from pills or heart failure or any of the physical things people point to. He died from exhaustion, from carrying a burden no human being was meant to carry alone. From believing that admitting he was tired was the same as admitting he was worthless. And that belief killed him long before his body gave out. Priscilla understands that now. Understands that the word she whispered was not the problem. The problem was the world that taught Elvis he was not allowed to be tired. The world that demanded he be superhuman. The world that took everything he gave and then asked for more. The world that loved Elvis Presley but had no room for the man behind the name. She was just the one who finally said what everyone else could see, but nobody dared to name. And he hated her for it. Not because she was wrong, but because she was right. And being right meant he could not hide anymore. Every person who has ever performed strength while drowning inside understands what Elvis felt that night. Understands the terror of being seen. Understands the shame of being human when the world needs you to be more. Understands the impossible choice between being who you are and being who everyone needs you to be. That is the legacy of that word. Not scandal, not betrayal, not even tragedy. Just the devastating simplicity of a truth too heavy to carry and too painful to admit. Tired. We are taught from childhood that admitting exhaustion is weakness. That rest is something you earn, not something you need. That if you stop, everything collapses. That strength means suffering in silence. Elvis lived that lie until it killed him. And he is not the only one. How many people are we losing because they are too afraid to admit they are tired? How many people are performing strength while falling apart inside? How many people believe that being human means being inadequate? How many people would rather die than ask for help? The answer is too many. Far too many. And the tragedy is that the help is there. The permission is there. The grace is there. But we cannot accept what we do not believe we deserve. Elvis did not believe he deserved rest. Did not believe he was allowed to be tired. Did not believe his humanity was acceptable. So when Priscilla gave him permission, when she named the exhaustion he had been hiding, he could not receive it. Could not let it in. Could not believe that being tired was okay. And that refusal became his undoing. Priscilla loved Elvis enough to risk everything by telling him the truth. She knew it might push him away. Knew it might shatter what was left between them. Knew it might be the end. But she said it anyway. Because watching him destroy himself in silence was worse than losing him to the truth. And she was right to say it. Even though it did not save him. Even though he could not hear it. Even though it became the moment everything fell apart. She was right to say it. Because some truths need to be spoken, even when they cannot be received. Some words need to be said, even when they shatter everything. Some love requires honesty, even when honesty hurts. And tired was the most honest word Priscilla ever spoke to Elvis. It was the word that saw him completely. The word that named what he could not name himself. The word that offered permission he could not accept. The word that could have saved him if only he had let it. But he could not. And so the word became a ghost between them. A reminder of the man Elvis could have been if he had just allowed himself to be human. A reminder of the life they could have shared if he had just admitted he needed help. A reminder of the truth that could have set him free if only he had believed it. Tired. Priscilla whispered it with love. Elvis heard it as condemnation. And in that gap between what was said and what was heard, everything unraveled. She wanted to give him rest. He heard failure. She wanted to give him permission. He heard weakness. She wanted to give him freedom. He heard the end of everything he had built. And so he chose the lie over the truth. Chose the performance over the person. Chose the mythology over the man. And Priscilla lost him. Not all at once, but slowly, inevitably, completely. The word tired shattered Elvis because it was the permission he needed but could not accept. It was the truth he knew but could not admit. It was the door to freedom he could not walk through. And it haunts Priscilla still, not because she regrets saying it, but because she wishes he had heard it differently, wishes he had understood that being tired was not the end, that rest was not surrender, that being human was not failure, wishes he had believed that he was enough, just as he was, without the performances and the pills and the constant proving. But wishing cannot change the past, cannot bring back the man she lost, cannot undo the choice Elvis made to keep running until there was nothing left. All it can do is remind us that the people we love are human. That strength is not the same as invincibility. That rest is not weakness. That being tired is not shameful. That asking for help is not failure. And that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is tell someone the truth, even when the truth is hard. Even when the truth shatters everything. Even when the truth cannot save them. Because honesty is still love. And love is still worth it. Even when it is not enough. Priscilla whispered one word. Elvis froze. And in that silence, they both understood. The man she loved was already gone. Not to fame, not to pills, not to the world, but to the lie he chose to believe. The lie that being tired meant being broken. The lie that rest was something he had to earn. The lie that admitting his humanity would destroy everything. Elvis believed that lie until the day he died. And Priscilla has lived with the weight of that word ever since. Tired. The word that could have saved him. If only he had let it. Have you ever loved someone who was too tired to let you help them? Someone who believed that admitting exhaustion meant admitting defeat? What did that silence feel like? Leave your thoughts below. We are uncovering the human stories behind the legends, the moments that broke them, shaped them, and haunt the people who loved them. Stories the world never wanted to see, but desperately needs to hear. Stay with us. There is more truth waiting in the quiet.